The four focuses of history makers. The life given us, by nature is short, but the memory of a well-spent life is eternal. Cicero. Be grateful for every moment. Don't be timid when it comes to your ambitions. Stop wasting time on insanely trivial things. And make it a priority to reclaim the creativity, fire, and potential that is dormant within you. It's so important to do so. Why do you think Plato encouraged us to know thyself? He understood intimately that we have vast reservoirs of ability that absolutely must be accessed and then applied in order for us to lead energetic, joyful, peaceful, and meaningful lives. To neglect this hidden force inside of us is to create a breeding ground for the pain of potential unused, the frustration of fearlessness unembraced, and the lethargy of mastery unexplored. History Maker Focus Number 1, Capitalization IQ. The Mogul explained a concept of capitalization developed by eminent psychologist James Flynn. The valuable insight he conceived is that what makes a legendary performer so good isn't the amount of natural talent they are born into, but the extent of that potential they actualize and capitalize. Many of the finest athletes in the world, Mr. Riley observed, had less innate skill than their competition. But it was their exceptional dedication, commitment, and drive to maximize whatever strengths they had that made them iconic. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog inside, declared the billionaire. Dedication and discipline beats brilliance and giftedness every day of the week. And A players don't get lucky. They make lucky. Each time you resist a temptation and pursue an optimization, you invigorate your heroism. Every instant you do that which you know to be right over the thing that you feel would be easy, you facilitate your entry into the Hall of Fame of epic achievers.
Your internal story.
As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the latest research emerging on successful people is confirming that our private story about our potential is the key performance indicator on whether we actually exploit that potential. Well, if you're running a mental narrative that says that you don't have what it takes to be a superb leader in business or an acclaimed expert of your craft, then you won't even start the adventure of getting there, will you? And world class is a process, not an event. Running a limiting psychological program that says everyday people can't become great or genius is born, not developed, will cause you to think it would be a complete waste of time to do the studying, put in the practice hours, and prioritize your days around your heartfelt desires. What would be the point of investing all that labor, vigor, and time and making all those sacrifices when virtuoso level results are impossible for someone like you, under your belief system? And then, because your daily behavior is always a function of your deepest beliefs, that very perception of your inability to realize victory becomes real, noted the billionaire. Human beings are hardwired to act in alignment with our self-identity, always. You'll never rise higher than your personal story. Important insight there. You absolutely have the capacity to lift your work to the level of artistry and have an impact for the betterment of humanity. And yet we resign our lives to apathy because of this faulty perception of who we truly are and what we can really accomplish, staying violently stuck in half-alive lives. And here's the really big idea: as we betray our true power, a part of us starts to die, noted the billionaire. Yup, responded the billionaire. Even worse, the potential unexpressed turns to pain, I need to emphasize. What do you mean by that? Wondered the artist, turning his eyes away and shifting his posture somewhat nervously. Maybe I'm sabotaging creating art as original and exceptional as the great masters did because I've avoided capitalizing on my potential for so long that I'm hurting deep inside.
Associations.
Many of the great geniuses of the world were not appreciated until decades after they died, you know, the billionaire offered, in a murmur. And on your point about your friends, I'm not so sure you're surrounding yourself with the right ones. And maybe now it's time to do you rather than limiting your talent and aliveness because you are seduced by the opinions of others. Kurt Cobain said it better than I ever could. I was tired of pretending that I was someone else just to get along with people, just for the sake of having friendships. What I'm sharing is accurate. We become our associations. And you'll never have a positive influence in your field and make a beautiful life if you hang with negative people, continued the billionaire. Oh, and that pain I was just speaking of, if not attended to and released, starts to form a deep reservoir of fear and self-hatred within us. Most of us don't have the awareness or possess the tools to process through this well of suppressed anguish. Most of us are unconscious to this quiet torment created by the disrespect we have shown to our promise. And so, we deny it if someone even suggests it. We flee from it when presented with an opportunity to manifest it. And we subconsciously develop a series of soul-crushing escape routes to avoid feeling this pain generated by our talents denied. Every time you become aware of yourself dropping into victim mode and make a more courageous choice, you rewrite the narrative. You raise your self-identity, elevate your self-respect and enrich your self-confidence. Each time you vote for your superior self, you starve your weaker side and feed your inherent power. And as you do this with the consistency demanded by mastery, your capitalization IQ, that is your ability to materialize whatever gifts you've been born with, will only grow. History Maker Focus Number 2, Freedom from Distraction. In some ways, the new technologies and social media are not only eroding the Everests of our glorious productive potential, they are also training us to be less human. We have fewer real conversations, fewer true connections and fewer meaningful interactions. Yes, I'm realizing this more and more as the mornings pass on this beach, admitted the entrepreneur. Filling valuable hours with meaningless moves is the drug of choice for most people, the billionaire continued. Intellectually we know we shouldn't be wasting time on zero-value activities, but emotionally we just can't beat the temptation. We just can't fight the hook. This behavior is costing organizations billions of dollars in lost productivity and deficient quality. And as I suggested earlier, people are making more mistakes in their work than ever before because they aren't present to what they're doing. Their precious concentration has been hijacked by a foolish use of technology and their priceless focus has been kidnapped, costing them their chance to create their best work and calibrate their finest lives. All the innovations in healthcare tech saved my life when I was sick, the billionaire explained. Anywho, technology well used is a phenomenal thing. It's all the silly ways people apply it now that really concerns me. So many potentially outstanding people are suffering from broken focus syndrome because they've filled their professional and personal lives with so many gadgets, interruptions, and cyber noise. If you're in the sport of winning, please model all of the great masters of history and strip away all the layers of complexity from your days. Simplify. Streamline everything. Become a purist. Less really is more. Concentrate on just a few work projects so you make them amazing versus diluting your attention on too many. And socially, have fewer friends but go deep with them so the relationship is rich. Accept fewer invitations, major in fewer leisure activities and study, then master a smaller number of books versus skimming many. An intense concentration only on what matters most is how the pros realize victory. Simplify. Simplify. Simplify.
The self-sabotage.
The closer you get to your genius, the more you'll face the sabotage of your fears, agreed the billionaire powerfully. You'll become scared of leaving the majority and having to deal with the byproducts of mastery, like being different from most people, jealousy from competitors, and the pressure to make your next project even better. As you rise toward virtuosity, you'll become anxious about failure, threatened by a concern of not being good enough, and insecure about blazing new paths. So, your amygdala, an almond-shaped mass of gray matter in the brain that detects fear, gets all fired up. And you begin to tear down the productivity you built up. We all have a subconscious saboteur that lurks within our weakest selves, you know? The good news is that once you become aware of this condition, I can make the better daily choices that will give me better daily results, the artist interrupted with all the energy of a puppy seeing its owner after a long day alone. Exactly, said the billionaire. Once you are aware of the fact that, as you near your highest talents and most luminous gifts, the scared side of you will rear its ugly head and try to mess up the masterpieces you've been creating by pursuing every distraction and escape route possible to avoid finishing, you can manage that self-destructive behavior. You can step outside of it. You can disempower it, simply by watching its attempts to denounce your mastery. The magnate then added, when you deconstruct how the superstars, virtuosos, and geniuses achieved what they did, you'll realize that it was their heightened awareness of the opportunities for daily greatness that inspired them to make the better daily choices that yielded better daily results. Now let's explore the neuroscience of self-sabotage so you cats can understand it better and then beat it. Remember, each of us has what the spellbinder calls the ancient brain. This is made up of the limbic system, a set of brain structures that sit on both sides of the thalamus, right under the cerebrum. The amygdala that I mentioned a few moments ago is part of this. This basic and lower functioning brain served to keep us safe thousands of years ago in a primitive world of relentless threats like starvation, temperature extremes, warring tribes, and saber-toothed tigers. It functions to do one main thing: maintain a steady state while warning us against dangers so we survive and propagate our species. One of the fascinating traits of our ancient brain is its negativity bias. To keep us safe, it's far less interested in what's positive in our environment and significantly more invested in letting us know what's bad. This brain's default is to hunt for danger, the billionaire continued happily. So back when life was much more brutal, we could respond swiftly and stay alive. That mechanism served our ancestors exceedingly well. But in today's world, most of us don't face death daily. The reality is that the ordinary person lives a higher quality life than most members of royalty did even just a few hundred years ago. Please think about this blessing. And yet, because of this built-in negativity bias within our ancient brains, we're constantly scanning for breaches against our security. We're in hypervigilance mode, mostly anxious and uptight, even when everything's going great. Fascinating, right? And that's where being a member of the 5 a.m. club can also work its magic for you, he told his audience of 2. One of the ways the great men and women of the world avoided complexity was by incorporating tranquility and serenity into the front part of their days. This beautiful discipline gave them absolutely essential time away from overstimulation to savor life itself, replenish their creative reservoirs, develop their supreme selves, count their blessings, and ground the virtues that they would then live out their days under. Many of the people who fueled the progress of our civilization shared the habit of rising before daybreak.
Solitude's benefits.
The great ones all spent a lot of time alone, offered the billionaire. Solitude, the kind that you can access before the sun comes up, is a force multiplier around your power, expertise, and connection to being human. And your escalation requires your isolation. See, you can be in the world all day long chatting endlessly on your phone about 1,000 senseless things, or you can change the world by exploiting your talent, refining your skills, and being a light of upliftment that raises us all. But you can't do both. Princeton psychologist Eldar Schaefer has used the term cognitive bandwidth to explain the point that we have a limited amount of mental capacity when we rise each morning. And as we give our attention to numerous influences ranging from the news, messages, and online platforms to our families, our work, our fitness and our spiritual lives, we leave bits of our focus on each activity we pursue. Massively important insight to consider. No wonder most of us have trouble concentrating on important tasks by noon. We've spent our bandwidth multitasking. Sophie Leroy, a business professor at the University of Minnesota, calls the concentration we deposit on distraction and other stimuli attention residue. She's found that people are far less productive when they are constantly interrupting themselves by shifting from one task to another throughout the day because they leave valuable pieces of their attention on too many different pursuits. The solution is exactly what I'm suggesting: work on one high-value activity at a time instead of relentlessly multitasking, and do so in a quiet environment. Albert Einstein made the point exquisitely when he wrote, "Only one who devotes himself to a cause with his whole strength and soul can be a true master." For this reason, mastery demands all of a person. This really is one of the most closely guarded secrets of the virtuosos and history makers. They don't diffuse their cognitive bandwidth. They don't dilute their creative gifts chasing every shiny diversion and every attractive opportunity that comes their way. No, instead they exercise the fierce discipline required to do only a few things, but at an absolutely world-class level. It's like I said before, the great ones understand that it's far smarter to create one piece of art, a genuine masterpiece that endures for generations, rather than thousands of projects that express no genius.
The Victory Hour.
And please also remember, the hours that the 95% waste, the top 5% treasure. 5 a.m. is the time of least distraction, highest human glory and greatest peace. So leverage the victory hour well. You'll make quantum leaps in your productivity as well as in your personal mastery. When you're up early and all alone, away from the overstimulation and noise, your attention isn't being fragmented by technology, meetings, and other forces that can limit maximum productivity, mused the billionaire. And so the prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain responsible for rational thinking as well as constant worrying, actually shuts off for a short time. Lovely information, right? That's the transient part of transient hypofrontality. It happens only temporarily. Your non-stop analyzing, ruminating, and stressful overthinking stops. You pause from trying to figure everything out and being so concerned about things that will probably never happen. Your brain waves actually shift from their usual beta to alpha, and sometimes even down into theta state. The solitude, silence, and stillness of daybreak also triggers the production of neurotransmitters like dopamine, the inspirational fuel that serves super producers so well, and serotonin, the beautiful pleasure drug of the brain. Automatically and naturally, you enter what I described earlier as the flow state. The flow state is the peak mindset that all exceptionalists like top violinists, iconic athletes, elite chefs, brilliant scientists, empire-building entrepreneurs, and legendary leaders inhabit when they produce their finest product, the industrialist added enthusiastically. When you give yourself the gift of some morning peace away from your busyness, the hardwired capacity of every human brain to access the realm of pure genius becomes activated. The excellent news for you two cats is that with the right moves, you can habituate the state of awesome performance so it shows up with absolute predictability.